My name is Perry. I'll be your host today, and certainly for future vlogs, I think is going to be the case.
Yes.
I'm here with Morgan Joseph Langan, and we're going to talk about the Manual for Freedom, a book project that Morgan's been working on based on the philosophy of Grace Grove and certainly the past maybe 15 years of experience in health and wellness, and more specifically the last 5 years of a more personal journey with Morgan.
Quite literally, these are grants of rights and powers to us that cannot be taken away from us. They cannot be aliened according to our Declaration of Independence, which means that these are rights that were granted to us by a sovereign power. And it doesn't mean you have to have certain religious beliefs. This is a spiritual concept. And it's a grant of power to us. That grant of power was also passed on. Our founding fathers had choices of how to sign the Treaty of Paris, and they signed it in the name of the people. So whatever powers the King of Great Britain held over here in the United States was then granted to us as the people. So again, we see the sovereign power passing from the Creator to the King to the people, and now that is being granted to us from the King. So we now hold all of that power, and from that place the Constitution was created. And we really have to feel this because it really is about a place of, oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. This is the gift that was granted to us. That's why our founding fathers died, and they fought these battles so that we could have this freedom. We're so blessed. So it's more of a feeling from my perspective than it is a heady place to be up here. It's coming from a place of being in your heart, if that makes sense.
Does anybody know about the Treaty of Paris?
Uh,
I mean, that's some deep stuff. Can you go into what the Treaty of Paris?
Well, the Treaty of Paris was the end of the revolution. That was what our founding fathers, ended and made it a treaty of peace between the United States and Great Britain. The war was over; it had ended, and so that the most significant piece of that to me is the grant of power that was granted by the King. The King owned it all. He owned the United States, and that's what we fought that revolution for, was to break away from that ownership, that we were our own sovereign beings, and that's what that whole battle was about. All of these wars and all these deaths. It was a noble battle because we felt freedom was worth dying for. And so when we go into that place of what they did for us, the posterity, they created this for us, we have to be so grateful because now we have a legacy that we can follow in the Constitution. And I want people just to stop arguing about these arguments about the Constitution. We're so blessed to have it. It's so important. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm starting to pick up on that. I mean, I've been getting into politics lately, and things seem uneasy and in tension. These kinds of concepts, I'm only just now recently getting involved with and learning about. Is there any way that somebody can understand how to find themselves in a good position to move forward?
That's a great question, because right now we're really facing the nonsense that's going on out there, this politics. That is not, has absolutely nothing to do with the power that you and I possess. When we understand the power we possess, all that nonsense is going to go away, because we are only going to support and elect individuals who support the Constitution for the United States of America. And those are the only people who are going to get elected into office, because there's going to be enough of us who understand that. In the interim period, it's important to know how to protect yourself. It's important to know the rights and titles you hold and how to access those rights and titles. There's been such bad information and such disinformation that we really don't understand those titles. And I think that's really what you and I love sharing is it's about empowerment, right? It's about learning how to step into the power that is really ours and was granted through this. We started with the Treaty of Paris. That is exactly where it started from, that grant of power to us. Everything, all the rights, titles, and interests held by the King, including in this land, belong to us. How did we lose it?
How did we lose it?
It's a sad thing. It's because of the consent of the governed. We continue to consent to the nonsense that's going on. That's the only way we can lose it. So when we learn what it's also about, to withhold that consent and be able to step back into that piece of sovereignty. That's the area that has been apparently taken away from us. And it's divided in the Constitution between two concepts, where it talks about cases at law and cases in equity. And the equity is this inherent side of the court. It's a separate jurisdiction. And that's what our specialty is. That's what we really have learned, how you protect and receive true justice is by moving into this inherent justice area of inherent law called equity.
How many people do you think know about this equity?
Well, I'll tell you, the brightest attorneys in the world know it intimately because it's what they use to protect the banks. That's why the bankers don't go to jail. It's because of the trust they create, and they know how to create it. It's Rockefeller, to own nothing but control everything.
Whoa.
And the ownership that they've taken is ours. They've taken our ownership, and I'm not going to stand for it anymore. I know who I am in relationship to that trust instrument. I want it back.
How does one first recognize that this other entity is taking authority over, say, this trust instrument, their own assets, and then maybe can you describe some ways that somebody can then, do you opt out? Do you go talk to somebody in some court? Do you try to petition, or do you protest? What give me some idea.
So we start from the very, very basic concept, is knowing who you are from the Constitution. That's what we're going back to. So we have to trace ourselves back through the process that got us to this. And it's a big topic that I don't want to confuse people with. All you have to know is that there's equity running and there's the law running.
Okay.
And if you choose to be in the law, you're going to get your butt kicked. You're going to get, because I can tell you, it happened to me. I didn't understand who I was in relationship to the law. And not having that understanding can get you into a lot of different difficulty. So when I say knowing the standing, I say also knowing that I never want to be in that jurisdiction. I want to be in the equity jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And in that equity jurisdiction, my right to life and to liberty and to be happy, to pursue happiness, which is my freedom to earn a living without being, living in fear of my government taking it away from me. It just is nonsense what's going on. And when we talk to people about that, we're so programmed to think a different way that it's okay. It's going to take time, and we're going to have to be, so that's why I'm really happy to have these conversations, so we can have an opportunity to explain to people why this is so important and why it's so important to every aspect of your life.
This whole idea of jurisdiction, court sort of jurisdiction, if I've just been opting in unknowingly into a system, say, of commerce that is ultimately being taken command over by these banks, and they're taking my assets and all this stuff, and there's a way for me to safeguard my own assets and help my family and say be more free. I may be one of the few people, and I can't help but seek out ways to live.
So this is great. Let's go back, if you don't mind my sharing a personal experience of your family and the pain that was suffered when they lost their home.
Yeah.
And we are going to win from that place. Banks have no humanity. They have no moral compass. They're stealing people's homes. They stole my home with utilizing false and fraudulent documents, and they knew it. The attorneys knew it. The banks knew it. Everybody knew it. The judges knew it. Didn't matter. It's the law. So unless we become an understanding of how we got into that position and are able to work our way back through it, we're in a washing machine here, brother. I mean, I would not want to be a young man without this information right now, because it is only going to get tighter and more difficult and more challenging to break ourselves loose and free from this. And that's not from a place of fear. That's from a place we're being called forward. Yeah. We're being called forward to know who we are in relationship to our Creator. And this is what this is all. That's what sovereignty is. Who am I in relationship? Well, however you define that Creator. Our founding fathers used divine providence. They used the nature's God. It wasn't, this is one being who created everything and all of things. And it is our duty and our responsibility to fulfill that sacred trust. We have come into that accepting as grantees that grant of power to us. And now we've granted as grantors to the government certain limited powers as trustees to manage this estate for us. And we are the beneficiaries of that. As are the people in the government. We're all one people. And it's our benefits that are being managed, and the sad piece is how it's been manipulated, and that is coming from the banks. Who's the ones that gain the most from it? The banks. They control and manipulate the supply of money, and money in that fiat system is the root of all evil. Quite literally, as my mom has told me that ever since I've grown up, I've kind of analyzed that statement, but it truly is. This money system is the root of every single thing going on. in our rooted in our economy, our livelihoods, our jobs, our safety, and our families. We're living in a survival mode society right now.
Just barely above water. Most people in this
yeah,
country.
there's a statistics, and who knows about statistics, but it was like, the average family would not survive a $500 extra expense, and that's a pretty. I mean, it was a high number. It was like in the 60%. And it's like here in our little community of Yavapai County. I mean, small community, 3,504 families are facing eviction by the county because they can't afford to pay their taxes.
Wow.
That's not the kind of society I choose to live in. I no longer want to be a part of this system, and it's not like a crazy guy. I just choose to no longer participate in a system that can control and manipulate us in this manner. I can't do it. I lost my home. This matters in the Supreme Court of the United States.
Okay. Well, this has already been handled by our court right here.
There's no.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with you, okay?
No, I'm not either.
Okay, what I'm telling you is you got to pack your stuff and you got to leave.
I nearly, it cost me, a lot of sleepless nights because I didn't understand what has happened here, and it's shocking. And it's hard for people to believe, and it's difficult. So, Paery, help me. How do we get this message across so people can understand how important this is to each of us?
See those tears, everybody? I'd say doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Having people like you go through the experiences you went through, sort of to come out on the other side and to have some insights to share is one of the biggest gifts. For me, having tracked all kinds of nifty things in research world, to be so interested in this topic for myself is sort of a surprise, and it may very well be similar for most people. Maybe their unexpected delight with this information is just sort of awaiting us to talk about it. It appears that things have been moving in a certain course for a long time. Banks have been around for a long time. We have the Treaty of Paris, we have these other things. Immediately following the Revolutionary War, did we have sovereignty in this country? Did we have?
Great question. So we had the Articles of Confederation. It was like it was really truly a trust document where we created a union of states, and we had this, but it was miserably falling apart. Each state had their own source of money. You had to take a wheelbarrow full to buy a loaf of bread. Everything was falling apart after that. So that's why our founding fathers had to come together to create a constitution that would hold us together as one people. And we had brilliant men like James Madison, who read 7 different languages and read the original text of government in Greek, so that he could bring us the absolute best of what they saw together as being the most possible way of having the most freedom, yet depending upon a government to be limited in its ability to control us. And that was their intention. So, we just see that the intentions that with what this has created is what we need to look at. And people are people. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. We've all done things that we are not proud of, and our founding fathers probably did too. But they created a document that vibrates at a level of unconditional love. And I'll tell you, whatever level that is, it's a heck of a lot better than what's going on out there, because it's pretty scary. And we have an opportunity to change it, because it's not going to take place in the political arena. We're not going to have a new president and all of a sudden everything's great. We're not going to have a change of Congress or change of the legislature and everything's going to be great. We have to understand that it's us who need to wake up and accept our power. And when we do that, we then become responsible for the way that our country is now being governed. Because then we withdraw our consent from those things we no longer agree with.
Okay.
And we give our consent to those things that are adding more life and creating more value for us as the beneficiaries and for our children.
Legacy.
We have to build a legacy here.
Yeah.
I don't personally have children, but you're going to have them.
Yeah, and I want to have land to raise my family on.
Yeah.
I want to own that land.
Right.
To learn so recently that it's just an overlay survey, fictitious land boundary. That's sort of the idea of someone owning, quote, land. But that is held by these same institutions, these banks, etc.
Think of it this way, Paery. I mean, your mom and dad went through a horrific experience of losing their home, And then their home was packaged into 1,000 other homes, went through the same thing. And all that grief and misery was bound up into a trust that was funding all this money into the banking system and the trillions of dollars in derivatives out the backside of it. And your mom and dad got nothing. They lost all their equity that they had in the home. They lost all of this resources that they put into their home.
Yeah.
And we allow that to go on. Our Constitution certainly never set up for that. This is so important that, because I'll tell you, there's something, they got another big one coming. It's being set up, and it's going to be headed more at the middle to upper class. I mean, it's, and I really think, you and I had this conversation earlier, what's a 33-year-old guy supposed to do? I think the biggest entrepreneurial opportunity and explosion of a lifetime is coming. And I think guys like you who are aware of what's happening and what's going to go on within the new economy that's going to emerge are going to be light years ahead of those poor Wall Street boys who are out looking for jobs.
That sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, I don't have a crystal ball to see when that's going to happen, but it's going to happen because what's happening right now is not sustainable. We know that.
Yeah.
And they've got, it's so far out of control. I got the Wall Street Journal and just had to sit down and laugh. It's a completely different newspaper than when I was in graduate school working on my master's degree. Things were pretty stable then. You had an offsetting ratio between bond prices and stock indexes. You had all these different elements happening. There's none of that stuff happening. It's so freaking complex and out of control. None of those people have any idea. So if they don't have any idea, let the herd follow wherever it may go.
Well,
but a guy like yourself who is aware and prepared and knows who they are during this whole mess and this change that's going to happen, I'm sorry, it could have potential to have some mix-ups, and it's okay. We need a mix-up. It's got to change and shift. We can't think that everything's going to remain absolutely the same.